It's kind of black power.
And when I say thug life, I mean that shit. Cause these white folks see us as thugs. I don't care what y'all think. I don't care if you a lawyer, if you a man, if you an African American, if you whatever the fuck you think you are. Them thugs and niggas for these motherfuckers. And until we own some shit, I'ma call it like it is. How you gonna be a man in the store? And we have to go by 5 different houses, ain't a man in either one of them motherfuckers. How we gonna be a man? How we gonna be African Americans? We out here thugs. We thugs. And we niggas until we set this shit up. So I tell you.
Young black males out there thinking about thug life, but I couldn't handle it. I could handle it, but not right away.
So today we're going to talk about Snoop Doggy Dogg and Little Half Dead. In 1995, Snoop was actively trying to leave Death Row Records. And he was using Death Row Records studio time to record a Dog Pound album. And when Suge found out about it, he was pretty upset. And Snoop was actually trying to set up a deal over at Warner Brothers. Now we have two sources that have said that Snoop was actively trying to leave Death Row Records. And one of them is Badass. The other one is Nina. In her book, she talks about Snoop trying to leave Death Row Records. And when Suge found out, she was the one that got blamed for it. Now this is all happening running up to Snoop Dogg's murder trial. So Snoop realizes probably he's in a dangerous situation. He realizes evidence has gone missing out of the LAPD locker. He realizes this is a deep, dark situation that involves politicians. It involves police. It involves many people that are nefarious, and he wants out of the record label. He doesn't want to be around these people. And so he's trying to leave Death Row Records. He's trying to set up a deal over at Warner Brothers. Suge finds out, and that's the end of that. The facts of life get explained to Snoop. And who was it that was first disrespecting New York? Who was it that was kicking over buildings in New York? Well, that would be Snoop. And then, of course, Biggie's on the radio, and there's a shooting, and that really is what puts the East Coast, West Coast feud into the public spotlight. So there was an allegation that was made on a recent interview that Little Half Dead was in jail at the time Tupac was shot. And so I did a little digging. I found Little Half Dead's criminal records, and there is nothing to indicate that Little Half Dead was in jail. And actually, a month after the Tupac shooting, Little Half Dead appears in court. So it would be very difficult for him to be appearing in court if he was in jail. I mean, certainly that he could be brought from jail, but there's nothing to indicate that Little Half Dead had anything more than some, 10 days of jail here, 24 days of jail there, in the years running up to the shooting of Tupac. And so what do we have? We have a feud that's going on between Death Row Records and Snoop, and the Crip side and the Blood side. Snoop is trying to leave Death Row Records, and that's 95. That's even before his murder trial ends in 96. And 96, you have the rivalry of Snoop and Tupac. Snoop said he wanted to be the greatest rapper of all time. And now here comes Tupac Shakur. Badass tells us in one of his interviews that things that it would take normal people a lifetime to do, Tupac could do in a week's time. He could do quickly. He could sit down and write lyrics in 5 or 10 minutes. And so definitely we have the game is being elevated by Tupac. The bar of the greatest of all time is being elevated by Tupac. And Snoop is ambitious. He wants to be known is the greatest rapper of all time. And now here's Tupac in his way. So what else do we have? Well, certainly we really haven't learned much since the Broomfield documentary. I mean, we've certainly filled in a lot of the blanks. We have a lot of new information that kind of, draws the same conclusion. Broomfield in the Biggie and Tupac documentary kind of leaves us with the impression that Snoop is somehow implicated, and he asks Suge, and Suge doesn't really come out and say, but then Suge kind of does say that Snoop is behind it. And then, of course, we have the Death Row Records website that says, all dogs run and hide, Suge's coming home. And you have the yelping of the dogs. Vlad TV, who interviewed Daz recently, and Daz says that he was supposed to go to Vegas, but he was told by Snoop, hold on, don't F this up. And so we get some indications that there is involvement by the Snoop camp. You have Nate Dogg, who is riding behind Frank Alexander's car, and he's on the cell phone reporting back to Daz, kind of a blow by blow. And his initial report is that both Suge and Tupac are dead. And the car sat for 90 seconds. Everybody thought with 13 shots that those guys were dead. And so that completely makes sense. Nate Dogg is ex-military. Nate Dogg is Little Half Dead's cousin. Nate Dogg is related to Daz. And so we have a happy little family there, all reporting back, getting reports back from Nate Dogg about this. We have Badass, who wanted to go with Tupac to Las Vegas. And he was told by the Dog Pound, hey, you roll with us or you roll with them. Make your choice. And so he decided that he wasn't going to go. So how is it that if the entire Dog Pound is staying back, that Nate Dogg goes with? Nate Dogg went with for a purpose. So we have the Little Half Dead album cover. We recently had the Little Half Dead album cover designer say that that's not Tupac and that's not Yak Fula. But we know that it is. We can see it from the pictures. That's definitely Tupac, and that's definitely Yak Fula on the Dead Serious cover, where you have Little Half Dead is the Terminator. And so Little Half Dead also and Snoop have Cadillac music. What is the obsession with the Cadillac? And in Pimp Slapped, the Suge Knight diss song, he says he bust out on him in the new Caddy. And so we have all kinds of indications that somehow Snoop and Little Half Dead are involved in the murder of Tupac Shakur. We have the confession letter that says that Little Half Dead was selected as the person that was going to kill Tupac. We have the Chris Blatchford statement, where he talks about having talked to the Pattons and that Little Half Dead was there to take out Tupac. And both of the Pattons had, each of them had a gun, and they were supposed to take out Suge Knight. And so there's quite a few indicators that there's Snoop involved. We have Snoop saying, you're going to Vegas, cuz, you're going to Vegas, cuz, you're going to Vegas, cuz. And the beef was so bad that on the plane, he was sitting with a knife and fork in each hand, and he put the covers over his head, and he thought that they were going to kill him. So what leads you to believe somebody's going to kill you? His security had been stripped from him, and it was a very, very long ride home. And we also have Kevin Gaines, Snoop Doggy Dogg's bodyguard, is on special assignment for LAPD from 2 days before the Tupac shooting until 2 days after his death. We have Tupac, who is improving. He's getting better. he's going to survive. Every indication is that he's not even in critical condition. And then there's a doctor who comes out and says, hey, he's expected to survive. Now, for liability reasons, doctors don't come out and make statements like that unless the person, the patient, is going to survive. And then we have Snoop who visits Tupac in the hospital, and we can just imagine what that was like. The minute the celebrity shows up, all of the emphasis goes away from Tupac for a time, maybe 5 or 10 minutes, long enough for somebody to sneak in and do something to Tupac Shakur. And Tupac takes a turn for the worse, and Snoop throws up, has a violent reaction to Tupac's death. What is that? Is that guilt? So we see that it's highly likely that Snoop at least knew, at least was complicit, maybe had something to do with, and we have lots of indications that Little Half Dead is the shooter of Tupac Shakur. More later.
Young black males out there looking about thug life, but I could handle it, but not right away.
Sick of this place, so I can't go to sleep. Sick of this race, and I ain't finna weep. Stomach full of beer, and I ain't gonna eat. The whole damn street just full of them sheep. Flow to the beat like toast to the heat. Toast to the street from the coast to the beach. Never be a pop, but I'm close when I speak. Never gonna stop when I flow to the streets. Never had hope, so say the drama. Had to sell dope just to pay for karma. Imagine being broke to your baby mama, and your mama's mama gotta make the commas. Drama find you full of snakes, piranhas. They was trying to put that hatred on you while the angels in heaven waiting on you. Freddy Krueger to intruders with the Jason on you.